kids, welcome to Awana again. We're going to ask another question. Every week seems like you and I sit here and we ask each other questions. Well, here's the question we're asking today. The question today is, why can't I see God? Where is He? And that's a good question. You know, you can see everybody else. You can see me right now. You can see each other. Look around. Look around the room. Is anybody invisible? No, everybody who's there, you can see them. You can see your mom and dad, you can see your brothers and sisters. We can see people, but we can't see God, can we? And that's a good thing to think about. How come that is? Well, we're going to talk about that a little bit tonight. Here's the biggest reason. The first thing we have to understand why we can't see God is because of sin. And sin's a thing that we talked about that a little bit a couple weeks ago, what sin is. Sin is when we do the wrong thing, when we know something's wrong and we do it anyhow. Or when we know we should do something but we don't do it. That's what sin is. And sin, what sin really is we're not disobeying mom and dad, we're not disobeying our teacher, we're disobeying God. When we sin, we disobey God. And sin has a bad consequence. It says in the Bible, in the Old Testament, that because of our sins, we're separated from God. And that's why we don't see God, because we're separated from Him. God made us to see Him just like you see me, just like you see each other. That was God's plan, is that we'd just be right there with Him and we'd be able to see Him and touch Him and sit on His lap. But we sinned and then we got separated from God, so we don't see Him. So it's like all of a sudden He's far away and we're here, and so we can't see Him anymore. And that's sad. And that's scary, and that's really the biggest reason that you and I can't see God, because we sinned and so we got separated from God. And if that was the end of the story, that'd just be really sad. It would be like your best friend moved away and you never got to see him again, and that was just the end of it. That would be sad, but that's not the end of the story, because we can be close to God still. Even though we don't see Him here, we can be close to Him. Here's what I mean by that. First, there's a verse in the Bible here in Colossians that talks about Jesus. And Jesus, it says here, an interesting thing, this is in Colossians, it says Christ, or Jesus, is the visible image of the invisible God. Wow, that's kind of cool. So Jesus, when He came and lived here on the earth, well, people got to see God because Jesus is God, and that verse says he was the picture of the invisible God. And so Jesus came to earth to come and be with us again, and God wanted all of people to be with Him, but we sinned, and so there's a separation. But God loved us so much that He sent Jesus to come and to be with us again, so those people got to see Him. Those folks got to see God. And that was just a picture and the beginning of you and I being able to be close to God, and here's how. A couple weeks ago we talked about this, that what Jesus did when He came was not just to show us what God looked like. He came to pay the penalty for our sins. And because He paid the penalty for our sins, if we accept that, if we say, yes, Jesus, I want You to pay the penalty for my sins, I want You to forgive me, when we accept that, what happens is then God says He brings us back, and that sin that separated us from God is gone. The sin is paid for, and God doesn't remember it anymore, and now we can be with God again, just like He wanted from the beginning. But we still, even after that, we kind of have to wait a little bit till we see Him. But God now, even though we can't see Him, He's very, very close to us. Well, how can that be? How can God be very close to us and still we can't see Him? Well, it's like this. Hey, Justin.
Yeah?
Did you hear that? Justin, where are you?
Down the hall.
Oh. Are you here?
Yeah?
Okay, great, thanks. Now what in the world? You can't see Justin, but he's still here, and he's very close, and he can hear me, and I can hear him. That's a little bit what it's like now with God. If you've accepted Christ, we still can't see Him, but we're very close to Him. And I want to finish today here with a couple of verses in Psalm 139, and because this talks about this idea of God being very, very close to us, even though we can't see Him. And this is David talking. This is King David when he was king. He had the same situation you and I did, and he knew God was close even though he couldn't see him. But this is what he said in Psalm 139. I can never escape from your spirit. I can never get away from your presence. If I go up to heaven, you're there. If I go down to the grave, you're there. If I ride the wings of the morning, if I dwell by the farthest oceans, even there your hand will guide me, and your strength will support me. I could ask the darkness to hide me, and the light around me to become night, but even in darkness I can't hide from you. To you the night shines as bright as day. Darkness and light are all the same to you. David understood something, that even though he couldn't see God, God was very close. And that's true for you and me too. We don't see God because of sin in the world. Someday we'll see him again. But even though we don't see him right now, if we've accepted Christ, God is close and he's near. And we can hear him. We talked about that last week, hearing God through the Bible. We can feel him. We talked about that last week too. God speaks to us. God cares for us. God watches over us. And so God is very, very, very close to us here, even though we can't see him.